Mel Gibson was walking down a busy street in Los Angeles, dressed in simple clothes and wearing a cap that barely concealed his identity. Since the release of The Passion of the Christ, his life had been filled with ups and downs. However, something inside him always kept him firm in his faith. With a Bible under his arm and a rosary discreetly hanging from his wrist, he decided to stop at a nearby park to reflect and pray. Suddenly, a group of young people approached him. There were about 8 of them, some carrying signs and wearing T-shirts with atheist and mocking messages, particularly against Christianity. One of them recognized him and, with a sarcastic laugh, pointed at him. "Look who it is, the defender of religious fantasies. How does it feel to know that millions believe in your fairy tales?" Mel, calm, looked at them with a serene gaze. "Faith is not a fairy tale. It is a gift," he replied in a tranquil but firm voice. The young people, far from calming down, began to shout more aggressive remarks. "Your movie is nothing but propaganda to manipulate weak minds. Stop imposing your outdated ideas on the world," one of them yelled while others took out their phones to record, hoping for an explosive reaction. But Mel simply took a deep breath, holding onto the Bible he carried. The tension grew when one of the young men stepped closer, trying to snatch the Bible from his hands. "What are you going to do, Mel? Defend this book full of fairy tales? It's just paper." Without giving in to provocation, Mel raised the Bible high and proclaimed clearly, "This book is not just paper. It is life, love, and hope. And I will always defend it because in its words, I find the truth." His gesture and words seemed to resonate in the air, but the young people continued laughing, mocking, and forming a circle around him. Then, something completely unexpected happened. A strong and warm wind began to blow out of nowhere, making the leaves of the trees swirl in the air. The Bible in Mel's hands seemed to shine under the sunlight breaking through the clouds. A sudden silence fell over the place. The young people, confused, stopped laughing. One of them pointed at the sky, eyes wide with disbelief. What's happening?" The wind intensified, but not in a threatening way. It seemed to wrap around Mel like a protective aura. At that moment, he closed his eyes and began to pray aloud. "Lord, illuminate these young people and show them that your love is greater than any doubt or mockery. Fill them with your peace and transform their hearts." As he spoke these words, a white dove descended from the sky and landed on the Bible he held. The crowd that had gathered around couldn't believe what they were seeing. Even passers-by who had no part in the initial confrontation stopped in their tracks, taking out their phones to capture the incredible moment. The young people who had been mocking Mel began to step back, some with tears in their eyes, as if something inside them had suddenly changed. This can't be real," one of them murmured. But Mel did not stop praying. His voice grew stronger, and in that instant, the wind suddenly ceased, leaving an atmosphere of peace. An elderly woman in the crowd broke the silence. "God is here. I can feel it." Her words seemed to touch the hearts of everyone present. One by one, people began to kneel, including some of the young people who had insulted Mel just minutes before. Mel slowly opened his eyes, still holding the Bible with the white dove perched on it. His gaze swept over the crowd, noticing how the atmosphere of mockery and aggression had shifted to one of awe, humility, and reflection. The young people who had challenged him now looked bewildered, as if an invisible force had touched their souls. "I did not come here to convince you with words," Mel said, his voice radiating a deep peace. "God's love doesn't need to be proven through debates or arguments. It is within each of us, waiting for us to accept it." A young man, who seemed to be the leader of the group, stepped forward, his face showing a mix of shame and curiosity. "How can you be so sure of all this? How can you believe so much in something you can't see or touch?" he asked with a trembling voice. Mel smiled slightly, lowered the Bible carefully, and extended a hand toward the young man. "Because even if you don't see him, you can feel him. Even if you don't touch him, he transforms you. God is present in every act of love, in every moment of forgiveness, and in every heart willing to open to him." The young man, still doubtful, looked at his friends for support. But some of them no longer shared the same defiant attitude. One even had tears in his eyes, struggling to hold back his emotions. I "I don't know what's happening," he said, his voice breaking. "But I feel something I've never felt before. It's like I've been carrying a weight all my life, and now it's lifting." The crowd, which kept growing, murmured among themselves, many commenting on the miraculous nature of the moment. The white dove took flight, circling over Mel and the young people before disappearing into the clouds. The sky, which had been partly cloudy, cleared completely, allowing the sunlight to bathe the place with a comforting warmth. A woman holding a baby stepped forward from the crowd and spoke with emotion. "Mr. Gibson, what just happened here has no explanation. You are showing us that God's love is not just words but something alive. Could you pray for us?" Mel nodded, visibly moved, and began to pray aloud for the woman, her child, the young people, and everyone present. As he prayed, the atmosphere seemed to fill with a special energy. Strangers embraced, others knelt in silence, and some simply looked up at the sky as if expecting another sign. The young leader of the atheist group finally broke down in tears. "I don't know what this is, but I want to know more. I want to understand what you understand," he said to Mel. "I'm still doubtful." Mel placed a kind hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to understand everything right away. You just need to take the first step and open your heart. God will do the rest." The young man nodded, and his friends, though silent, seemed more receptive. Suddenly, a voice rose from the crowd. "This should be shared. The world needs to hear what happened here today." Several people began recording and broadcasting live. Within minutes, the images of the miracle and the transformation of the young people began to go viral, reaching thousands in real time. Meanwhile, in the place itself, the atmosphere continued to change. People who had only been observers now approached Mel, forming a circle around him. Some shared their life stories. A mother struggling to raise her children, a young man who had lost faith after a loved one's death, an elderly man who had been an atheist all his life but now doubted his own beliefs. Mel listened patiently, speaking from his heart. "I'm not here to convince you of anything," he said. "I just want you to know that God's love is not something you have to earn. It's already there, waiting for you. He doesn't judge you for your mistakes. He embraces you because you are his child." Then, someone in the crowd shouted, "Look at the sky." Everyone looked up and saw a bright rainbow forming above them, even though it hadn't rained. Mel raised the Bible once more. "God always gives us signs. We just have to be open to see them. He is always here, even when we think we are alone." A reporter approached him and asked, "Mr. Gibson, what message would you give the world after what just happened here?" Mel reflected for a moment before replying. "My message is simple. Never underestimate the power of love, faith, and redemption. The world needs more hope and less division. If this moment can inspire someone, then it was worth it." As the rainbow continued to shine, the hearts of those present seemed transformed. Mel took a final moment to pray with the crowd, leaving them with a message of faith, love, and the infinite grace of God.